hey baby, when you die, what do our children get? And how do I secure that so no stranger comes in and tries to take advantage of me?
Hello and welcome to Women in Power. I am so excited you are here with us today. It's a very exciting day. I'm with Naz Barouti. She's a longtime friend now, several years. I actually interviewed you on Women in Power probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago. However, now you've come out with a book. It's called Love, Death, and Money. You know, straight to the point kind of a title.
That's how I am.
You know, let's not mess around here. But I interviewed you 3 or 4 years ago because you are an asset manager. Is that what you call it?
So I'm an estate planning attorney.
Attorney. But you also now have 5 other offices in California. You also do now divorce and you opened 5 law offices.
I did. I'm not one to be fearful of a challenge. I 10x everything.
Oh, I love that. And when you were on the show last time, you were talking about why women should protect themselves and go ahead and look at their wills and what's set up and what's in place. And it's not a comfortable topic to really want to address.
No.
But before your show, Grant and I didn't have certain things in place. And it was because of that interview that even though I harped on him for at least 6 months. And then finally a year later, we got all of the affairs in order. We designated who would take over the kids and whatnot. And I really appreciate that because even though it was difficult to get us to go through that point, it had to be done.
Do you know that warms my heart? That makes me so happy that conversation triggered so much and it pushed you guys to get these documents, because I think a lot of people like Grant want to avoid it. They don't want to talk about not being around, but what's better, planning or then leaving everything up to the government? Because the government has a plan for you, believe it or not.
Well, that's what I read in your book. I didn't realize that your assets will automatically get divvied up between siblings, between parents. I had no clue about any of that. And part of the uncomfortable conversation also is because as a spouse and a wife who makes less than Grant, a lot less, my assets, if we're just going to divvy them up separately, to a normal person, mine could seem pretty significant, but in comparison to Grant's, they're like nothing. So to have that conversation with my husband is difficult because I don't want to be like, well, when you die, what do I get? You know, and
well, I always try to phrase it, hey baby, when you die, what do our children get? And how do I secure that so no stranger comes in and tries to take advantage of me? Who have you talked to? Who are the financial planners? Can I get the number of our accountant? Being aware and taking responsibility of our financial affairs, I think, is so important, because we as women, we're multitaskers. We're so good at multitasking everything. And this is a conversation that sometimes we think that it leaves a bitter taste in our partner's mouth if we talk about, but it's more.
Which it did.
Yeah,
it did.
Yeah, but
I'm
sure he's so grateful that you brought up the conversation, and maybe he wasn't even aware of it. He thought that you could easily go into the banks and access everything and transfer everything automatically, and it was a great conversation to have. And not only that, Elena, but what if something were to happen to you and Grant at the same time?
Yeah.
You guys travel a lot together. You want to make sure those 2 young, beautiful girls are protected and they don't just get a big chunk of their inheritance, this empire that you built, that there's restrictions for them.
Yeah, and that's why we actually confronted the whole scene and got that sorted out. But now I've read your book. And now I realize that there's more to do, because like I'm saying, the epiphany that I had from your book was that I have my little things, if you want to call it that, but I have my mom's future inheritance. She's actually put me as the executor of everything and da da da. But anyway, so I have that. I have what I've already come into the marriage with, what I've acquired since the marriage. I have my little piece over here that I haven't addressed because we addressed this thing that we are together. But even though we have the together, I also still have my little side deal.
You're your own boss too, Elena.
So that's what I'm saying. And so now after reading at least the first half of this book, I'm realizing that there's more for even me to do, because I never did
Thought
anything
about
with
that.
this.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason.
I mean, it's so important to plan. And the main reason I wrote this book, you know, it wasn't about the money, because I'm all about having purpose when you have a business and making sure that you're helping people. And I started noticing a trend that a lot of women were feeling intimidated to go to an attorney's office. And a lot of estate planning attorneys are older men, so they're a little bit more conservative and judgy. And I wanted this to be a legal Bible for women, that in any stage that you're at,
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
you open the book and it applies to you, or you know someone that it would apply to. It's just red flags to avoid.
So, okay, why? It's very clear that when you read this, you have a passion to empower and really help women. Why is that? Have you seen it too many times a problem? Like, why so much for the women?
It's that, and it's also my background. I'm Middle Eastern, and my father raised me like a son, which I'm so grateful. And there are a lot of men that don't do that. They baby their daughters, or they're helicopter parents. He wasn't like that with me. When I was applying for college, he's like, "You're not allowed to stay home. You have to go far, far away."
Wow,
and I almost
impressive.
cried. I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You got to learn how to live life, and you got to be independent," because a lot of the times we see in relationships that people control with finances. But if you make your own money and you're independent, someone mistreats you, you're out of there. You don't need to depend on them for anything. So that was the background of it. And then when I started my practice, I started seeing so many women getting taken advantage of and not knowing what to do. And I said, no more. And also with this whole Me Too movement, I wanted to turn it around, and I wanted to give the power back to women and use that movement in a positive way. Instead of the victim mentality, I wanted every woman to have a victor mentality, and that they were strong and confident and they had the tools to protect themselves.
Oh man, that is so great. So what would you say is the age women should start becoming aware of this? Because it is difficult to get maybe a 20-year-old to start thinking, well, how do I even think like this? Because a 20-year-old, in typical normal cases, they really don't have any real assets yet, or have acquired much. So like when should they start be thinking about?
You know, it's interesting because there's a chapter in there about a college student, because the minute that you're 18, you're an adult. And with estate planning, what's important to remember, it's not always about money. It's about what happens if you're incapacitated.
Oh, yes.
Letting the government know, hey, if I'm in a hospital or if I'm incapacitated, I want X, Y, and Z to step into my shoes to make financial and medical decisions for me. And, you know, as young people, we think we're invincible, but I always say accidents do not discriminate against age, gender, race. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Bad things happen to good people all the time.
Yes. And there's a story in there with a young woman who's in college who gets into a car accident. She's in a coma. She had inherited a huge amount of money from her grandmother.
Wow.
So you have all this money in a bank account. She's in the hospital. She's incapacitated.
Wow.
No one can access it. Her parents start fighting over this money. Have to go to court because they're separated. Her parents had gotten a divorce many years prior. So if you're thinking that estate planning, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, wills, and trusts doesn't apply to you because you're 18, 19, 20, think again. Every person needs a power of attorney and a healthcare directive if you're an adult. It's so important.
And you also discuss prenuptials, postnuptials. What is a postnuptial?
Postnuptial is after you've become married and you need to divvy up stuff. So,
and you would do that if you were going to get a divorce?
Not a divorce, but you know what happens? Sometimes we go into a marriage with nothing, and then we have this app, and then it takes off. I mean, you're kind of the brains behind this empire as well. So you guys both went into this marriage. Maybe it could have been equal, it could have not been, but then during the marriage, assets grew and your empire grew.
Yes.
So now you want to get back to the drawing board and say, okay, now if we get divorced, we're already married.
Right.
This is what's going to happen. And
so a post, okay, let me just clarify. The post would cancel out the pre?
So
but if you never had a pre,
if you never had a
pre, you don't need a post.
So when you do a prenup, you haven't gotten married yet. When you do a postnup, you're already married.
And it has nothing to do whether you had a pre or not.
No.
Okay.
We see a lot of celebrities do that. They'll do postnuptial agreements, or they'll do prenups, and they'll have sunset clauses. So like after sunset clauses.
Sunset clauses.
So after 10 years, we're going to go back to the drawing board. If you're making more money, especially with actors in Hollywood, Sometimes one actor is, hot commodity.
And then not.
And then sometimes they're not. So then the other
Yes.
spouse is making money. So you want to make sure that that estate or the assets are equally divided if there's a divorce.
Got it. And so how long did it take you to write this book?
This was all in my brain for 8 years.
Wow.
And I finally said, I need
Enough.
to put this out.
Yeah.
And so it took me about a year to do this. And, I had a lot of content because I do a radio show in Southern California. And there was just so much information I had. And I said, I need to do an easy to understand guide because lawyers are so hard to understand. I apologize in advance for all of you that have had to deal with attorneys that you just don't know what they're saying. And I wanted an easy to understand guide. I don't like big words, and
Me either.
there was a lot of misunderstood words that people had because of the legal terms. So I don't want to say I dumbed it down because it's not dumbing it down. It's just I explained it in a way where it's easy to understand.
You know what? And I believe the simplest things in life are just that. They're simple. And I question anything that is so complex I can't understand it, because then I think, what are they trying to hide? What are they if I can't understand a business deal, Grant and I talk about this all the time. If we can't understand a business deal, a concept, a model of how it works, and it needs to be explained, it ain't right
Walk
for
away.
us.
Yeah.
And that is a problem, and what can be intimidating with lawyers is you read a piece of paper and there are so many words on it. I have no idea. And I feel like they just do it to just try to get to rack up the hours on the clock or to make themselves seem important.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know y'all are important. I don't mean to lump you in on the category.
Well, I always tell men I date, there are two important things a man needs in his life: a good lawyer and a good woman, and I'm both.
I love that.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop. Do you find that men are intimidated by you, or do you find that men are attracted to power?
I get a mix of both because I'm in Los Angeles. So then
Okay.
I sometimes, when I'm trying to, feel someone out, I won't say I'm an attorney right away. I say radio host. I slowly bring them into the whole attorney conversation. Yes, I think a lot of men are intimidated, but then I see the very few men that are motivated by my power, and they get encouraged, and they want to see me shine just as much as I want to see them shine.
Yes.
And I love men like that.
Me too.
Love.
Me too. I find, I think just basically the circle that I am around now, that I see more men not actually embracing a woman that has a lot of power. Like, they like it. So, but I remember before Grant, and maybe it was where I was at, I would think that guys were a little intimidated because I had more money than them back then, or at least the ones I was hanging out with. I was an actress. I had my own house, cars. I didn't need them for anything.
Right.
And so, but I think what they didn't like about that was that they probably felt unneeded.
I think it's that, Elena, but I think another layer of that is that if they mess up and they treat you poorly, you can walk away. I think it's a power dynamic that a lot of men can't handle, and those men are not the ones that you want to date anyway. You want to stay away from them.
Oh, totally.
But I just love when power couples get together and they just build each other, because if your woman is doing well, guess what? You're going to do well too, because she's happy, she's motivated, she's going to push you, she's going to call you out on your BS, and you guys are going to rise to the top together. It's not limiting your power by any means.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's, that's fortunately where we're at now in our life and stuff. But so getting back to your book, what do you think is the most, like the chapter that you think is the most vital that every woman needs to know?
I think that the chapter about living with a significant other.
Okay.
Because we're in a day and age where people don't get married anymore for whatever reason. For
whatever reason, because everyone's making it seem like being married is your
torture.
life is over,
Yeah.
and everyone gets divorced because at the drop of a dime, the minute they get offended, they're out the door. And it's difficult. It is difficult. And no one wants to put in the work in order to get that gold star, that gold medal relationship.
Yeah, and I also think ethics are not in relationships anymore.
Well, that could be too.
And that's very hard to find someone that's going to communicate and be honest and ethical in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so they end up separating. But I think that a lot of women or men think that if they live with someone that they have rights legally, and that's not the case. So I see a lot of women that come into my office. They've been living with a man 10, 15 years.
What? I thought in California that's considered a legal marriage.
No, there's no such thing as common law marriage
Wait, I
anymore.
thought there was.
No.
You're blowing my mind.
No, there's no such thing as common law marriage. So they think that because they've been living with someone for so many years and that person passes away, that they can just access the home that they've been living in or that they've been contributing to the mortgage. And they don't. And guess what happens? That person's children or family comes in and says, please leave the residence because you don't own it. And there's a trust or a will that named me, some complete stranger,
to you,
the executor. And I'm like,
I just paid 20 years of
I've been
mortgage.
living in this house for 20 years. What do you mean I have to leave?
And can the person sue and say, at least I want my money back for the part that I paid?
No.
What?
Because the courts don't know what that deceased person's intent was. If there's something in writing and it says, I want my house to go to X, Y, and Z, the court's not going to come argue that because you had a relationship with that person. That's not how it works. So ladies, if you are just living with someone, and I'm not here to judge you for that, make sure that you get in writing.
It could be their decision.
Yeah.
Maybe the woman doesn't want to be married.
But at least get a cohabitation agreement.
Not now, but yeah. But that was me. I never, until Grant, I was never wanted to be married.
That's
So I did. I listen to this. I bought a house, lived with the guy, let him live with me.
Of course you did,
because like I said, I was on the show, and I was like, no, it's fine. I have the money, whatever. Mistake. Anyway, I live with the guy. Finally, I can't take it anymore. We've got to break up. He doesn't want to leave the house.
Did you have to go to the eviction process?
No.
Oh, you're so lucky.
It's worse.
Oh, no.
So he says he's not leaving. He says, okay, it was his idea as exchange because I bought the house, I paid for all the rent. I mean, it was bad. I had, and maybe this is my fault, but I bought all the clothes, I bought all the dinners, everything. Like I didn't care, you know what I mean? Well, so as part of his exchange, he redid, because he was an art director for sets and stuff, and he was very meticulous. I mean, he could build stuff and it was like gorgeous. So he redid my entire kitchen to look like this beautiful, like mint condition, like this 50s. That's the way I wanted it to look, like this 50s kitchen, but modern. Anyway, so he redid the kitchen. Anyway, so he tells me, guess what? Not only am I not leaving, I'm putting a mechanic lien on the house saying that you owe me $60,000 or $80,000 for all the stuff that I paid for the kitchen that he just did. And you won't be able to sell your house for however many years, 2 years. So you know what I did? I said, this is the deal. Here's the house and the title. You sign right here, it's yours. Never talk to me again. And he still lives in that same house.
Wow.
And I walked away. And then guess what? The show ended. I couldn't get another job for a year. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. I was broke. I lost all my friends because I decided to stop doing drugs and drinking. So I lost all of my friends because now I'm not cool anymore. And then I went to this 1-bedroom apartment. I was so broke, I couldn't afford Starbucks. I'm like, what happened to my life?
Elena, you needed a Naz in your life.
I needed a Naz in my life.
You needed Naz in your life.
I mean, I was like, even though everything was horrible and I was broke and couldn't afford Starbucks and my 1-bedroom, I was happy I had a 1-bedroom apartment. I thought to myself, one day, I am going to outcreate this. I'm going to create something so magnificent. This is not going to be the thing that holds me back. Even though it looks like I'm doing worse now, I'm doing better now. Even though I'm living in a rat hole in a very bad part of town.
It was a learning lesson for you, and that will never happen to you again. And that's why I put stories like that in here. They're cautionary tales for women to avoid. And if you can go through life with not having an experience like yours, then more power to you. But we don't know who we come across. People change. People get funny with money. And why not protect yourself?
People get vicious. You think, wow, I thought this person really at least cared about me. And then when they get so vicious at the end,
it's shocking. And I was quoted with an article that was talking about the book, and I got a lot of backlash for it because I said, what's mine is mine. And I think a lot of women are terrified of coming across as not greedy, but just kind of possessive of their things. And it's not about being greedy or not a giving person. It's just that if I've worked so hard to accomplish all these things and build this empire, I'm not going to let anyone or anything come in between that. Whatever we build together, sure, let's share it. But if I brought something into the marriage and I have, for example, a law practice, you better believe you're not getting a dime of that if we decide to separate.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
Well, fortunately, Grant is an amazing human being.
Yes, he is. I love that man.
He never made me sign anything. He wanted to, but I said no, and he didn't push that. So he came into something, and he had to just trust that it was all going to work out. And the thing that I love most about him is he kind of laughs at me, but he at least he's amused by it because he always says, yes, it's true. What's ours is ours and what's hers is hers. And it's true. I have my own little thing right over here. And then the rest, we have this thing. But he lets me have that little thing because he understands that's just what I need.
Yeah. But it's a confidence, I think, with Grant too, and he's a strong person.
Exactly.
You're a strong person. The ethics are in. The communication is in. And I've heard this rumor, and tell me if it's wrong, but that you guys communicate to each other once a month about what you need in the relationship.
We try to do it once a week.
Oh
we try to do
love
it
that.
on Sunday. It's usually a very brief conversation unless there's a problem and it needs to be done longer. But we always re-hook up with the purpose. It's not so much what I want and need. Maybe that happens once every blue moon. But every week we say, what are we doing? Where are we going? What is the purpose? What are our goals? Because when we do that, it refocuses us. It gets us on the same page. We let go of a lot of the pettinesses in an ideal world. We're not perfect. You mean that's a given. But when we're operating optimally, that's what we're doing. We're focused on the purpose. The little stuff we let slide during the week because we know we're trying to hit big targets.
You have to be effective.
And the thing that I know, when we get along really great, we usually have a big enemy we're fighting.
That's usually what happens.
And that's usually what happens. And it's like, as much as I hate the enemy and as much as I hate going through the experience, whenever that happens, I'm extra protective of him. And I want, and I try to fortify us even stronger because I know that my enemies want to see us split up.
Of course.
They want us to fail. People on social media say, I hope you lose all your money. Like, there's mean people out there.
But Elena, do they know that you're a spiritual warrior? Are they aware of that?
I love that.
Because that's how I am. There's nothing coming in between my purpose and my power. And that's why you got to hang out with people that are like you, because I think that there's power in numbers and purpose. When you get a group of people that have the same focus and they're on the same wavelength, nothing can come in between you.
Yeah, and that's how I feel, and that always fortifies us. So as much as I hate it, I just have to kind of suit up. But
you got to go to war.
You got to go to war.
We are ready.
We are ready. Okay, where can people follow you on all the social mediums?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram, Naz Barouti. I'm on Twitter. You can find the book on Amazon.com or lovedeathandmoney.com or NazBarouti.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Last time I got all of the family aspect in order. Now I'm going to take care of my little
That's amazing.
nugget. Would not have even known to do that, honestly. This is a very easy book to read. I'm halfway through and I just started yesterday.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's really worth confronting. It's really worth looking at because you don't want to find yourself you don't want to find yourself dead, but you don't want to assume that your loved ones are taken care of and the ones that you don't want necessarily taken care of aren't. So it's a good book just to know what you don't know, because I didn't know until I read this, and I didn't know before I had you on the last show. So thank you for coming on.
You're so welcome.
I am so glad you're expanding 5 offices in California. She's an incredible attorney, Naz Barouti. What is the name of your
Barouti Law Corporation?
Law Corporation. So simple enough. If you're out in California and you need any help, contact Naz. She'll help you out, and you'll be my lawyer.
Oh yes.
But
I'm fighting for you always.
Yes, I love it, girl. I love it.
I see all your power videos.
You
boxing.
do? Yeah, I know. I'm
shooting.
trying. All right. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Women in Power. We will see you next time.